Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to PFY Live. We took a little bit of a break since conference time, but we are excited to be back. We've got a new lineup of speakers and happy to be bringing you inspiration, encouragement, and some new ideas in the area of serving young people in our church. So, Amy Cummings here with Partnership for Youth, and today we have several guests with us. First of all, I've got my partner in crime over at Partnership for Youth, Elizabeth, is here with us today. And then Brady Borslien from the Diocese of Fargo, Minnesota, or Fargo, North Dakota. Sorry about that. And Leah. Leah, help me with your last name. I apologize.
It's a tricky one. Butalid.
Butalid.
Yeah,
And
I'm still getting used to it. It's a new one for me. So I'm still learning.
How many months married?
4 months. 4 months on Monday.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank
you're coming to us today from
Orange County, California.
Awesome. Yeah. Welcome. And we're going to discuss today mission mindset on the importance of investing in our young church. And at Partnership for Youth, we've always, that's our mission and our vision is to serve the young church. And for years, it had primarily been just high school students. And we certainly have branched out to serve middle school students because we know the importance of engaging them in their faith at a young age is so important. So we asked you guys to come today because just 2 weeks ago, you were Brady hosted and organized the middle school. Was it your first one, Brady, your first school rally or conference there?
Yeah, for the Diocese of Fargo, it was our first event since COVID.
Okay, awesome. And can you tell me what was the name of the event and a little bit of the behind the scenes of why you decided to host a middle school event in the diocese? And I know you're pretty new to the diocese as well.
Yeah. So yes, I am new to the Diocese of Fargo, but I've been doing youth ministry on a diocesan and parish level for about 10 to 15 years. And so this event, the reason we chose to do it, so it was called Relit, it was a typical middle school rally. It's kind of the things most dioceses tend to do a rally, even though they're kind of like fading out into the background now. They just aren't putting all of their work and resources into it. But for us in this diocese, I've been here about 1.5 years and talking with the youth ministers, the DREs, and the priests. There's just this desire, this yearning for getting everyone together for like an event that's energetic, high, and lots of fun, very charismatic, very prayerful. And so that's what really drove why we decided to do the event. Typically in this diocese, it's something that they've done in the spring. But in my previous work, we noticed that in the fall time, the middle schoolers tend to have an open schedule or a more flexible and open schedule. So we tried it this year and it looked like it was good. It looked like it was very well received. I got a ton of phone calls from people just excited and energetic, really passionate about like the future of this event in this diocese.
Awesome. Leah, is that something you're kind of seeing in your area too? Are people kind of doing more middle school events and you were the speaker at our event, so thank you for coming in to do that. But I think we're seeing it on a national scale where we're impacting young, middle schoolers much more intentionally. Would you say that's the same in your area?
Yeah, I can definitely speak more directly to what's going on at my parish. So I work in communications at San Francisco Solano Catholic Church in Orange County. It's confusing, not San Francisco, Orange County, southern part of the state. But yeah, we've seen a huge influx in our middle school youth ministry program in general, not necessarily just in events, but in regular attendance. The biggest moment of my day yesterday was we had our All Souls Day Mass at 7:00, and we had to have 60 or 70 middle schoolers come in because that's typically when they have their middle school youth group, and just like filled up 6 or 7 rows of the church, and middle schoolers who are interested and open. And so I feel like right now, especially kind of because of the circumstances COVID has created, middle schoolers in particular are ripe for evangelization. You know, they've been, you know, kind of coming out of this phase of isolation when, you know, there's something in them that might even have wanted to be isolated to some extent. And the church is coming and saying, no, you were made for communion. You were made for community. And I'm from what I've seen, there's a positive response from these middle schoolers, whether it's here or even at the Relit event, which was so awesome to be at. So thank you so much for having me come out for it. Yeah, just seeing young people who are open and even if they're unsure of what it is that they're looking for, they're at least receptive to what the church is offering, and it's super exciting to see.
And that's beautiful to see, because I know that Kara study that came out a few years ago about the research that they did related to young people making a decision about their faith at the age of 12 or 13, right? Which, my goodness, when I was 12 or 13, I was not, you know, I was not deciding faith things. I don't know about you, like, what were you doing in middle school? Like, I mean, tell me your middle school experience. I mean, what was your faith like in middle school, Leah? Or
it's actually, this is great timing because last week my sister found my 8th grade yearbook, and there was like a write-up of like, you know, who I wanted to be and what my life was about, kind of thing. And it's actually quite beautiful the way the Lord has worked in my life, because up until my 8th grade year, I was pretty, you know, disengaged with my faith, kind of, you know, raised in a Catholic home, going through the motions, but didn't have a personal relationship with Jesus. And actually, the summer before my 8th grade year, I somehow snuck into a Steubenville conference. I wasn't in high school yet, but I know. And that's where I first encountered Jesus in a huge way, and recognized his presence in the Eucharist, and knew that he loved me. And so that's like the initial kind of launch pad for you know, my personal relationship with Jesus. And so it's funny, my sister sent me this yearbook thing, and like the things that I said, like I was excited for, were like going to heaven and becoming a saint. And the things I was afraid of were like, I think my first fear was hell. And it's like very dramatic and intense as a little 8th grader. But I mean, it's funny reflecting on that and knowing where I was at that point, that the Lord had worked in my life through that Steubenville conference at the mere age of 13. You know, I think there's this tendency to think, oh, 13-year-olds, they're just, you know, stuck in their own little worlds, not really taking their faith seriously. And I wouldn't say I was really like taking it super seriously, or, you know, adopting any intense devotions or anything like that. But there was something going on, and the Lord was working. And it's just wild to look back on that moment and see what he's done since then. Because what he does do in the hearts of little 13-year-olds sets the course for the rest of their life. And what we do in the ways that we evangelize them, minister to them, makes a difference. A difference for me. And I know it continues to make a difference for middle schoolers today.
Those seeds that were already in your heart, right? That just continued to be fed and watered along the way, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Elizabeth, how about you? What was your middle school faith like?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I come from a homeschool background and like a solid Catholic education. So honestly, my faith life in middle school was pretty strong. I would say it was strong intellectually, and like I knew a lot about the faith, or I had a lot of exposure. We had daily mass as part of our curriculum, like throughout the week. So I had a lot of like Jesus time, but I don't think I really started developing a more personal relationship with him until I was preparing more towards confirmation. But I would say like middle school events that I went to, or like retreats and those types of things, helped to foster more of that knowledge and like exposure. So it was very familiar and comfortable for me. I didn't really make more of a personal decision until later, but much like Leah, seeds were planted very, very early on. Yeah. I mean, my siblings and I were playing mass at a very young age. So there were just like a lot of things that I had incorporated into my life, made faith easy to practice. And I'm obviously very thankful for that. But yeah, so I would say, yeah, that's where I was at when I was in middle school.
Beautiful. Well, look, we're going to hear what Brady has to say about his middle school years.
Yeah. I mean, it was very interesting. It's good. I loved seeing the question to reflect and to recall of what it was like being a kid, because you tend to kind of forget about those things as you get old. In my middle school years, faith really wasn't a big thing. It was unique to ponder that. Like, so I come from a Protestant background. So I grew up a Missouri Synod Lutheran. And as I think about what it was like for church, like we were like pretty much the Christmas, Easter type of people. Even though we lived within walking distance from the Protestant church there, but we didn't really attend to terribly much. I recall, like, just in my middle school years, the focus was mostly sports. Like every memory that's coming to my mind as I thought about those years was like this basketball tournament or this hotel experience or like, this summer gathering with the friends, but not really much stood out regarding like my formation there. The things that I do remember from at least that time, I have an older sister. And in the church where we attended, to get confirmed in 8th grade, like we'd always, get that Wednesday off to go to RE. I remember when my sister was studying for confirmation, she had to study the Luther Small Catechism. And like 300 questions, because then they quizzed you in front of the church. And I remember being so afraid of that. Like, I'm not going to know this stuff. I'm not going to understand. I'm not good at memorization, et cetera, et cetera. And that was kind of like my earliest experience with like recalling the church life, or at least that, my experience there. I do remember vividly, like I wanted to go to one Protestant, like it was like a sleepover church lock-in, something like that. And I remember I really wanted to go to it, but I was never able to attend. But, just in my going back to the reflection of my middle school years, there really wasn't a lot of Jesus like in the home, in my friend's life, in my own personal life. And I think that's why, where I am today is why I'm so passionate about exposing youth to an encounter with Jesus at that young age. Just knowing like I didn't have it and I don't want these youth to miss out on it. Like I want them to at least know that someone's proclaiming Jesus to them and how much he loves them and how much there's so much the church wants to offer to them. So it was great to think about that question of being a middle schooler to where I am now and the transformation that the Lord has done and the stirrings and the workings he's done to get me into the Catholic Church and to serve in this capacity here where I'm at now.
That's beautiful. Oh my gosh. Well, a conversion story for sure that we will listen to someday. I'd love to hear the whole, all the Lord worked in there. But I think that, in my middle school, like Elizabeth, I come from a very Catholic family. My husband says it's an uber Catholic family. So I had my little Piata prayer book already as a middle schooler that I was saying my little prayers out of. We went to daily mass. But I would say that definitely it was not a personal relationship. So I wrote prayer was very common, and sacraments, but was only later on in life that I really engaged in a deeper relationship with the Lord. So it's interesting to see him work in each of our lives in a different way. Even, in our middle school years could all be different and but he still brings us to him. And that's the work that we do here, is to offer those opportunities, right, for them to come and experience his love and experience the universal church. So I wasn't at the event, but I would like the three of you, actually, Brady, neither were you, right? So first of all, to talk a little bit about what was the setup of the day. So what did that day look like? What were the components of it a little bit, kind of high level? And then I really want to hear too, what were you seeing in the hearts of the young people? And Leah from stage, what were you experiencing when you were speaking with them? So let's start out with a little bit of what the again, high level, what did the program look like?
Yeah, good. So the event, it's kind of taken a new form over a couple of years. We did some stuff in the Diocese of Crookston and revamped the middle school rally that I was able to bring over to here. But so it was like a 3-quarter type day event. Start like with Leah as our keynote. She gave 2 keynotes off of that theme of relit, and the whole idea behind why we chose going with that phrase for the event is because we're coming out of COVID and we need to stoke those fires again. We know that there is a call upon us to go out and share the gospel, to be disciples, to be passionately in love with Jesus. And we just need to share that with the youth, like that they have a mission, that they have a purpose, and we need them to go out. So she gave 2 keynotes. We also had a workshop that happened in the midst of it too, where Leah would talk to the chaperones and the adults. And Ryan Modal, one of the teacher at the Catholic middle school here, he kind of talked about like relighting friendships and what that will look like, what that should look like, what are holy friends, how to discern good friendships and ones that are kind of more toxic. Along with that, we gave them food because that's important. And then in the afternoon, we did praise and worship with adoration and confession. And I love this part of the day. I love that moment because the kids, their hearts are starting to open up. They're starting to, just get more comfortable with being there. And you just see them flock to confession. We had 10 priests that were there. And bless them because they sat outside kind of in some crisper weather. But my staff said that they threw blankets over the priests to keep them warm. And then we had an opportunity for like a social time, a couple hours of just like running around. This event was done at like a retreat center, like a camp retreat center. So we brought in some inflatable games. They could roam the grounds. We had concession stands. We had some like challenges in the gym with beating a priest in a shootout. We had some crafts going on and just a variety of things. And then we concluded with Mass with Bishop Folda and other priests that came to join us, and then dinner. And so that was kind of the setup of the day. Pretty straight, start to finish, but it was a pretty fruitful one, or at least that's what I've been told because I had to leave, unfortunately.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. I mean, a full day for them, but so many wonderful elements that I like. The idea of building up some trust with them, right? So that they can be open during that time of Eucharistic adoration and reconciliation. So a beautiful program. Sounds like it flowed very nicely. So what was your experience, Leah, as you stepped into that space and you encountered the young people over the week, over that, it was a Friday. That day.
Yeah. So right off the bat, it was interesting noticing it really did feel like this group of middle schoolers were like ready. I didn't feel like we needed to guide them along or, like open them up little by little. It just seemed like they were, like I said earlier, there was this ripeness in the room of, they were ready to kind of go deep. And I will say this is a bit of a caveat and maybe a commentary on California versus Midwest, but these middle schoolers, I was so impressed with just, their maturity, their respect. I keep telling people here, I never saw a middle schooler on their phone. And I don't know if that was like communicated to them by the youth ministers or what, but I was just very, very impressed with them. And just throughout the day, so just a little bit of context on the content we were working through with the theme relit. I focused a lot on the Holy Spirit, the gift that we've received in baptism, and just how that kind of animates the rest of our life. That we do have a distinct mission and purpose, just like the apostles did at Pentecost, and they were sent out and they established the church. And in that same way, each of us individually are filled with this Spirit, and God is calling us to do amazing things right here and now, not 20 years from now or not when I graduate college, but right here, right now. And I did just sense, like I've been saying, a real openness and receptivity to that message. And I think the sweetest moments of really recognizing that were during adoration. And Elizabeth and I talked about this. We were standing in the back, and there were students who just walk up to be close to Jesus in the Eucharist because they knew he was there. And it was a subtle direction, I think, that was given maybe by Allie, if you want to come closer, you can. But it was at no point like really pushed on the students. And so there was this genuine desire that we saw to be close to Jesus and to engage with him, speak with him, and look at him and allow him to look at them. And so that was a really, really beautiful moment to just see them responding to what God was doing that day. And then I just love the way we concluded everything with the Mass, that our highest prayer is where we ended things. And that, literally from receiving that sacrament, they are sent out, and their mission starts then. And whether they were explicitly living with that, consciously, or just the Lord working in his little subtle ways, something did happen that day for each and every one of those students, and they were sent out from the sacrifice of the Mass to go be his apostles, be his disciples throughout this world. And I'm excited to hopefully get to heaven one day and see all the fruits that were born from that. So it was really, really cool to see their openness and their response lived out throughout the day.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Elizabeth, what was your experience? So, first of all, I just want to commend Elizabeth. This was her first solo event that she ran for our event services department here at Partnership for Youth. And so just did a wonderful job. And we're excited to have you on board with all your skills and talents. And so what was your experience of the event, and what were you seeing in the hearts of the middle schoolers and chaperones alike?
Yeah. Thanks, Amy, for all of your kind words. It was so much fun. It really was just a joy to be with everyone. And like Leah said too, I sensed a real openness. I sensed an excitement in the room, despite weather conditions. It was crisp. It was chilly. And the youth were just resilient to that, right? It wasn't getting in the way of them encountering Christ, nor did it impact like their day in any way that I saw. So there was a real openness, and especially during that adoration and confession time, just seeing them, go out right to confession. There was no hesitation in their hearts. And I was kind of reflecting on this later, and there is a real sense of childlikeness still in a middle school student. They're like kind of awkward, but like not like overly self-conscious yet. And that just serves them so well to be for the graces of God to come into their soul. So that was really fun to see. But yeah, there was a good energy. At the retreat. Allie, our worship leader, really got them engaged in some of the praise and worship very early on. And they were excited. They were excited to share that. They were excited to be there with their friends. And it was just beautiful to be a part of that. One thing I did also appreciate too, I wasn't able to sit in on every keynote fully or every breakout fully, but I did hop into the breakout about friendship. And one thing I noticed was that Ryan, who was leading that session, was really challenging them on some deep levels of friendship. And at first I was kind of like, wow, like this feels like a high school talk or something. But then I was like, no, like they're open and they're ready. Like we wanted like firm foundation for them to come back to. And there's like such a vulnerability in that space when you're forming yourself as going into high school, right? And finishing middle school. And so just to know, like, I think we tend to underestimate our middle school population. They're like, oh, they're not quite ready yet, or they, they're just still young. But no, like God calls them at a young age, and I think as a few of us have shared, like today, things happen in their hearts and in their souls, and I'm convinced that a lot of good will come out of this, and just into the next school year for them as well. So yeah, it was a joy. It was wonderful. And, like Leah said too, they were very well behaved and very attentive and very receptive. Yeah, it was really beautiful to see. I was just personally in adoration, just in the back of the room, and just kind of like struck by the presence of the Holy Spirit that I felt throughout and surrounding the entire yeah, it was beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Brady, do you have any comments? I know because you weren't there as well, but do you have any comments back from your youth ministers that took kids, or parents that took kids to the event, and what was their experience? And what are they seeing in their young people maybe following the event as well?
Yeah, so I've been able to do a little bit of follow-up. I've got an evaluation out to all of the parishes that were in attendance to send out to their chaperones, to their youth. But the ones that I talked to, like Ryan Modal, he was saying, before lunch, I was talking to youth and they already want to come back next year. Like he was just ecstatic because he's like, you guys haven't even done the win event stuff yet. Because usually like the social and the gimmicky things, that's what gets the kids to come back. So, but he was saying, like, he was just hearing in these little pockets of these middle school tables that, like, they already are wanting to commit to come back next year. And now I know that a year away a lot can change, but just like there's that passion, that zeal, that love, that excitement for, like, this is great. I talked with a few of the chaperones that took kids, and the entire car rides home, like, just kind of like that retreat high. Like, it was exciting. They encountered Jesus in a way that they've never encountered. They had, went into adoration in the new way, in the sense of, like, having praise and worship, like very charismatic praise and worship that they've never had before. They have profound times in confession. And one girl, I was talking to this chaperone, and she was saying the entire way, this girl just couldn't stop talking about it. Just couldn't stop talking about how, like, this was like one of the best days of her life.
Oh my God.
And that was, I mean, that's something that I've seen, and that's why I'm very excited about, like, events like these, or even, like, pulling it further back to, like, retreats, especially into middle schools, because we talk, like you guys have said, like, we can speak to them on very profound levels, and they're going to get it because they're seeking it. They're internalizing questions that, like, we can talk very open about with them, and they're very moldable. Like, they're, like, the studies showed, like you said, like, they want to know, is God real or not at that middle school level? So we just need to present it without the fluff, just the realness, and they're going to get it. So there's a lot of positivity so far, and I have some meetings with one of the deaneries and their youth directors. So tomorrow I'll hear more. I'm sure I'll hear a lot about the crispness of the weather, but I know they love the site. They love that it was not in a school. They love that it was as, like, a very, like, outdoorsy type thing. And I know that they hope that we can utilize that space more in the future.
Brady, how many kids did you have registered or attend the conference?
On the day of the event, we ended up with about 175 in total. That was youth and adults, but we did have about 20 to 30 that had to back out due to some last minute complications. So we had about 200 to start with, which is great. Because I was hoping for 50.
Wow.
I was like, Lord, just give me enough to fill a couple seats, and I'll be a happy camper. And the Lord does what He always does when I do these type of events. Is He exceeds the expectations of what I think is going to happen. He multiplies, and it was great to see. And I know that we, God willing, and I'm very confident and hopeful that in the future, like, it's just going to grow.
Awesome. And thank you for trusting in a Partnership for Youth to come alongside of you to help host this event. For those who don't know, one of the offerings we do have here at Partnership for Youth is our event services. And so we can come alongside you as a parish or a diocese and help you in any capacity for an event that you want to do, whether that's contracting with the speakers, being on site or not on site. And so lots of ways that we can support, for those who are listening, your mission and your ministry in your parish and diocese. So reach out to us if you have questions about that. And just as we close today, just one final remark, I guess, from each of you. Why do you feel it's important that we minister to middle school kids today in this current environment in the church and in the world? What is it that you hope for them?
I think I'll start if that's all right. I think that I go back to what I think Pope Francis, he talks about how the youth of the church are not the church of the future. They're part of the church of right now. And if we're not presenting Jesus to them, a lot of false gods are being presented to them and demanding their worship, and like you said, I mean, at this age is when they're making this decision, and they're asking these big questions. I know I worked at Life Team for 6 years, and a lot of what we talked about when we were there is how middle schoolers today are asking questions that college students were asking 20 years ago, and they're confronting realities that I might have not experienced until I was well into high school or college, and if we're not presenting Jesus to them at that moment, there is going to be a response to those questions that is a distortion or a lie. And so there is this urgency to serve them in a very intentional way. Because they're not the church of the future, the church that we'll get to. They're not, something that we deal with when they've grown up. They've grown up, or they're going to be forced to grow up one way or another. And as a church, we have to treat them as the church of right now, as part of this body, again, with these very distinct purposes and missions that are not any less meaningful because of their age, that they deserve to have the fullness of truth and to respond to it as God is calling them to. And so, yeah, I just think we can't hold off on this, because if we hold off, we're gonna miss our opportunity. Granted, the Lord, He'll work in mysterious ways, but He's giving us such a great opportunity to respond to them right here, right now.
Agreed. Thank you. Beautiful. Brady, how about you?
I mean, Leah put it perfectly. The reality is, like, I was a parish youth minister for about 10 years. And again, like, I've served in Crookston on a diocesan level, where we had a middle school camp that was very thriving and charismatic. And if we don't present the gospel, if we don't minister to these youth, like Leah said, there will be others that will present a false gospel. And we're seeing that so regularly through social media. I follow a few of these accounts that, are like an offshoot of Catholicism, and just the things that they're saying are so anti-church. And I'm thinking about, like, being a middle schooler and saying, like, they're going to believe that this is the actual church teaching, because they're presenting themselves as a Catholic, and so there is, like she said, an urgency, like Leah said, like an urgency to present, like, we need to. And also the reality is, like, their home lives, like just a brokenness. They're searching. They have some very real, deep wounds, and we as the church need to accompany them, present love, goodness, mercy, happiness, joy. It just needs to happen, because there's the epidemic of depression, suicide ideation, and it is getting intense. So that's why I love the idea of, like, an urgency, because it's true. Like, we need to reach out, we need to discuss, and I have a hope that all the work that we do with these middle schoolers, all the time we invest, all the sacrifice of our resources and our tiredness, is going to bear fruit. Like, it's going to bear, like, exponential fruit in the church, because they are going to take what we say to them and they're going to run with it. They're going to be these torchbearers that are going to go into the future of the church and really set it on fire.
Beautiful.
Can I add to that too? I love that, torchbearers, that they can set it on fire. Very relit of you to say that. But I also am so convinced that intergenerational evangelization can be effective, but I do think that there is something powerful about a middle schooler evangelizing to a middle schooler, or a high schooler evangelizing to a high schooler. And so if we can, propose Jesus to these middle schoolers, and they receive that fire, they're sent out, they go out and do far more than we could do, because we're just reaching the ones who are, somewhat engaged with this church, somewhat Catholic, but they're the ones who are in classrooms, on sports teams, in clubs, with students who have never heard the name of Jesus, or who have never been brought up in an environment of faith, and they then take that with them, and that's what changes the world dramatically. So love the torch bearing.
Awesome.
Send them out.
A great addition. Elizabeth, how about you? Like,
I will fully echo everything that Leah and Brady said. I think, like, my hope is that the church can be a safe space for them, and a place that they turn to for answers to their questions. A place that they can ask a tough question, and we don't water it down. We don't give them kind of a vague answer, but we speak and proclaim the truth, because that ultimately will empower them, and that will help them to make decisions and to be discerning, and to see the church as a place of authority. And so that's my hope, is that they find safety in that, and they find a sense of truth, and it's proclaimed to them in its boldness and in its beauty, because they're ready to receive. They are willing to have Christ enter their lives, and there's an openness. And I think we need to take advantage of that and just run forward towards them.
Great. Oh my gosh. So much work to do, but it is good work. It is worthy work. So, Leah, if someone wants to get in touch with you to either bring you in or even have more conversation about middle school ministry, and you also do some talks for high school as well, right?
Yes.
Where can they reach you?
Yeah, so the best place would be my personal email address, which this is confusing because it's not been updated to my current last name, but it is Leah Murphy, LeahMurphy, 181@gmail.com. So that's the best place to get connected.
Great. And we'll put that in the comments for people to grab as well. And Brady, how about you? If someone wanted to be in touch with you, if they're like, hey, we want to do this for our diocese, what did you do? Teach us the ropes. Where can they reach you?
Yeah, the best way is to get a hold of me through my work email, and it's going to be Brady, BRADY .Borslien, BORSLIEN @fargodiocese.org.
Awesome. Great. So we'll put that in the comments as well. And as we wrap up today, just a couple things. We are offering our Pfy Summit. It's a new event that we're starting. It's a quarterly webinar that we're doing, a live webinar. You do need to register, but it's free to come and be educated and inspired. And this one is going to be focused this week on Thursday. It's at 7 p.m., right, Elizabeth? Central Time. And we're going to be focusing on why large events are important to you, your work in ministry, youth ministry. And then we'll be also be giving some information about the 2022 Steubenville Youth Conferences that we'll be hosting here in Minnesota. And then join us next week live here, PFY Live. We'll be back every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central Time. And just thank you both, Leah and Brady, for being with us today. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the church. And thank you for your passion and your love for the Lord that just comes through each of you. So thank you so much. We're glad to have you with us, and we'll see you again soon. Brady, we're having you back to talk about your conversion story.
We watch it.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much.